Does it include CIA personnel?
I would be glad to discuss that in a classified setting.
Does it include anybody who's filled out SF-86, the standard form 86?
The individuals who have completed an SF-86 and may be included in that, and we can provide additional information in a classified setting.
Why wasn't this information encrypted?
The encryption is one of the many tools that systems can use. I'll look to my colleagues at DHS for their response.
No, I want to know from you why the information wasn't encrypted. It's personal sensitive information. Birth dates, social security numbers, background information, addresses. Why wasn't it encrypted?
Data information encryption is a valuable
yeah, it's valuable. Why wasn't it?
And is an industry best practice. In fact, our cybersecurity framework promotes encryption as a key protection method.
Why didn't
Accordingly, OPM does utilize encryption.
We didn't ask you to come read statements. I wanted to know why you didn't encrypt the information.
An adversary possessing proper credentials can often decrypt data. It is not feasible to implement on networks that are too old. The limitations on encryptions is effective, on the encryptions, our effectiveness is why OPM is taking other steps, such as limiting administrators' accounts and requiring multi-factor authentication.
Okay, well, it didn't work, so you failed, okay? You failed utterly and totally. So the Inspector General, November 12, 2014, we recommend that the OPM director consider shutting down information systems that do not have current and valid authorization. And you chose not to. Why?
I appreciate the report by the IG. We work very closely with our IG, and take very seriously.
Okay, but he had a very serious recommendation to shut down the system. That's how bad it was, and you said no.
I'd like to turn that over to my...
No, I would like you to answer that question. You get to make the... It says, we recommend that the OPM director consider shutting it down.
It seems to me that we just have bureaucratic paralysis. Nobody is really accountable. Now, Ms. Archuleta, let me ask you, members of this committee have called upon you to resign. You've rebuffed that. Do you still believe you should remain in your position?
We had over 10 federal data system breaches last year. So there is a culture problem. And there is a problem of civilian leadership not understanding we're in a cyber war. Every day we're getting attacked in both the public and private sector. The U.S. military understands this. That's why they stood up an entire U.S. cyber command. But until our civilian leadership understands the gravity of this issue, we're going to continue having more data breaches. So let me give you some examples of this culture problem. You've heard today there was unencrypted Social Security numbers. That's just not acceptable. That is a failure of leadership. Look at the various IG reports over the years showing material weaknesses, and then look at last year's IG report, page 12. It says, as of November of last year, OPM had not yet done a risk assessment. That is ridiculous, especially since you knew in March your system was breached. That is a failure of leadership. And this goes beyond just OPM. Now, Mrs. Scott, you've only been here a few months, so you're going to get a pass on this. But I want to know, why was it that it wasn't until last Friday that agencies were ordered to put in basic cybersecurity measures? Why wasn't this done last year? Why wasn't this done years before? There was a failure of leadership above that of OPM. And when there is a culture problem, what have we done in the past? Well, especially in the area of national security, you can't have the view that, oh, this is legacy system, oh, we have these excuses. In national security, it's got to be zero tolerance. That's got to be your attitude. We can't have these breaches. The CIA can't go around saying, you know, every now and then our database of spies is going to get breached. That cannot happen. And when you have a culture problem, as we have had here, in the past when agencies have had this, leadership resigns or they're fired. At the DEA, leadership left. We had this happen at the Secret Service. We had this happen to Veterans Administration. And we as a government do that for two reasons. One is to send a signal that the status quo is not acceptable. We cannot continue to have this attitude where we make excuse after excuse. And you know, I've heard a lot of testimony today. The one word I haven't heard is the word sorry. When is OPM going to apologize to over 4 million federal employees that just had their personal data compromised? When is OPM going to apologize to the federal employees that had personally devastating information released through the SF-86 forms? I haven't heard that yet. And when there is a culture problem, we send a signal to others that the status quo is unacceptable and leadership has to resign. And the other reason we do that is because we want new leadership in that is more competent. And so I'm looking here today for a few good people to step forward, accept responsibility, and resign for the good of the nation. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Well said.
So what you're saying, it was better that you supplied that and put federal workers at risk versus making it, according to your words, the highest priority to make sure that the information was not compromised. If it's your highest priority, why didn't you shut it down like Mr. Chaffetz asked and like was recommended? Why didn't you shut it down?
But we do not believe that this condition rises to the level of material weakness, end quote. Do you believe that your opinion on that has changed since November of 2014, Ms. Archuleta?
I appreciate all of the information
Didn't ask you
and
that.
the recommendations that the IG has given us, and we will continue to
Do you
work
still
with him
believe now,
as
knowing
we-
what you know now, that that condition did not rise to the level of material weakness?
Sir, we are working with a legacy system, and
Didn't ask
as
you
the
that, Ms. Archuleta.
recommendations that he has made to us, we are working through those to the best of our ability.
That's what frightens me, Mrs. Archuleta, that this is the best of your ability.
I've been here 18 months, and I took seriously the audits that came before me, and that is why I have done and taken the steps.
We don't
that
believe
we
you.
have.
I think you're part of the problem. I think if we want different results, we're going to have different people. And if you want to refresh the deck and we want to put Mr. Osmond or somebody else in charge like that, let's do it. Because you know what? We got a crisis. That hurricane has come and blown this building down. And I don't want to hear about putting boards up on windows and, you know, it's going to take years to get there. That's why I think it's time for you to go. And Ms. Seymour, I'm sorry, but I think you're in over your head. And I think the seriousness of this requires new leadership and a new fresh set of eyes to do that. I wish you both the best in life. I'm not out here to get you. But you know what? This is as big as it gets. And they're going to have to be a new team brought in. That's where I'm at on this. So I yield back to the gentleman.